Broadcasting live from the Voldarin estate on the plain of Innistrad, this is Tap Tap Concede. Welcome everybody to Tap Tap Concede. You've been invited to a wedding. My name is Graham, and joining me is Cameron.
I love weddings.
And Nelson.
Oh my god, I have nothing to wear.
And before we get in to talking about the first bunch of Crimson Vow preview cards, we want to remind you that this show is brought to you by Card Kingdom. Please check out cardkingdom.com/LRR. Go pre-order your Crimson Vow there. It's the best place to get it because it's good prices and fast shipping, like preposterously fast shipping and excellent customer service. And you can ask them for a button. You can say, loading ready run sent me, button please, and they'll give you a little 1-inch button, which currently says upkeep, draw, untap. And of course, this show is brought to you by you and your kind support of our Patreon at patreon.com/loadingreadyrun. And if you're watching the video version of this on the YouTube channel, throw us a sub if you're not subbed. Also, one last bit of housekeeping. Very exciting. The Crimson Vow pre-release is coming up this Friday on twitch.tv/loadingreadyrun. Obviously, if you are watching on that aforementioned YouTube channel, LRRMTG, then the VOD for it will be here, and all the videos that we produce for it will also be here in separate, more shareable and digestible form if you so desire. But if you want to catch it live, head over to Twitch. It's the first time in the world that anybody outside Wizards gets to play Crimson Vow, and we're very excited to bring you a fun day of sealed gameplay with pre-release kits. Also, we're going to be doing a Commander game later. Originally, we'd said it would be part of the PPR, but it turns out that the two Crimson Vow Commander decks won't actually be previewed until after the PPR, and so we can't do that. But we're still going to record the game, and it'll be up. We're aiming to have that up on the Tuesday the 9th, the day after those decks are previewed. So let's get into talking about Crimson Vow. They had a big stream sort of broadcast. They sort of moved into more of a Nintendo Direct kind of style of doing their reveals with like a pre-recorded thing that they live stream, and they had that last Thursday, did Wizards of the Coast, and they showed off a bunch of new cards from the set and different art styles and new mechanics and all kinds of fun stuff. Let's talk about that. Where do we want to begin? There was so much. Do we talk about mechanics?
Maybe it's good to start with the mechanics first.
All right. From a brief discussion before we started recording, I know that, Cam, you are keen to talk about Cleave.
Cleave makes me so happy. Is this the most poetic magic keyword we've ever had? It's called subtractive poetry, right? Where you like take an existing text and you erase things from it until you get a new meaning. I love it. I had it as a Desert Bus challenge a few years ago where I suggested that people take Claude Shannon's very important paper called A Mathematical Theory of Communication and find the poems in it. But Cleave is a mechanic where you can pay an alternate cost for the spell, and then you delete the words that are in brackets. So the example that I would give right now is Dig Up, which is a 1-green sorcery that reads, search your library for a basic land card, reveal it, put it into your hand, then shuffle. We all know and love this card. Mm-hmm. It also has Cleave for 1 generic mana, 2 black mana, and 1 green mana. So you're quadrupling the cost. What do you get from it? Well, when you do that, the words basic land and reveal it are in brackets in the text. So for 4 mana, you suddenly get a Demonic Tutor, which is not great. It's not a great return, but it's Demonic Tutor, right? Feels good. And it also does the thing for 1 less mana that sometimes you have to do with Demonic Tutor, which is get a land.
Yeah.
Right? Nobody's ever happy to DT for a land, but sometimes it's, you got to stay in the game.
Many perfectly, unassuming, just run-of-the-mill, boring, get-there kind of hands involve turn 2 Demonic Tutor for a land.
Yep.
So getting a discount on that bit, getting to comfortably play Lay of the Land in your Demonic Tutoring deck that's kind of exciting, honestly. I think this card's sort of great.
Also, you can say, when you have to do that, no, dig up, stupid, right?
Yeah.
The card is so flexible. It operates in 3 modes, one of which being joking about digging up.
Yep.
Now, I love cleave. I agree with you completely. I love that it's just like, no, we just slice those words off the card.
I know Aaron Forsyth, I think, tweeted about how he was not able to get a spell or a card through development that said destroy all islands with the IS in island in brackets.
What a shame.
Yeah, that is too bad. That would have been fantastic.
Like, it's probably not a great idea for a card to have in standard, but I think there's a lot of development space with this mechanic that I personally would love to play with and have rejected by people who actually understand how this game works. Wizards, hire me for the next set that has cleave, and I will produce literally thousands of unplayable Magic cards for you.
Wow. You be careful what you wish for there, Cameron. It's entirely possible they take you up on that.
I mean, I'm here for it. I'm 100% here for it. I would love to just produce ideas for Cleave.
That's a fresh take to what my Twitter timeline has sort of been about in regards to Cleave. It seems like Cleave has the drawback of, having to parse these sentences that, we always worry that like both enfranchised and new players will have a tough time with it. It is a little bit confusing, I will say, like having these multiple sets of brackets popping up in the sentence. But, like most things, there's a knee jerk that this is going to be worse than it actually is. And after a week of playing these cards in draft, we'll all get used to it probably.
Yeah.
I think Overload was actually a more complex mechanic playing in the same kind of space. People get that pretty intuitively once they like saw it in action, right? I feel that this might be like a video game or an MMO raid mechanic that takes 30 minutes to explain. And once you actually see it happening, you're like, oh, I get it now.
Yeah.
Right.
I think so. I've seen a criticism of, oh, it's just different kicker, which, okay, yeah, fair, but the same can be said of many Magic mechanics.
Yeah, there's a pretty good article on the Mothership. I don't know if it was Aaron Forsyth again or Mark Rosewater, but someone was like, there's a pretty good article that's like every mechanic is kicker.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Yeah, any alternative cost, I think, could be templated as kicker with just a little bit of ugliness in the card.
The criticism that I saw that I think is actually the most fair is just that this is going to be really irritating to localize.
Ooh.
That's probably true.
Yeah, GLHF with that.
Yeah, someone posted an image of, I don't remember the name of it, but it was like that mass exile spell with Overload. You mentioned Overload, right? Mm-hmm. In Japanese, and the Overload rules text, like they didn't do the cute like replace this with every or replace each with every or whatever it is, like however Overload is worded. It's just entirely alternate rules text. It's just like, this card does this. If you pay this cost, it does this, because it has to be worded totally differently because the syntax and grammar just doesn't match.
Fair enough. Yeah, I mean, translation is also one of the things that I love dearly, and yeah, rough. But it's a price I'm willing to make other people pay.
Right, exactly. Greatness at any cost.
Yeah, exactly.
Magic in multiple languages is the cost for this kind of thing, right?
Hey, yeah, exactly. Greatness at any cost. Sometimes you flip Tombstalker.
But what if the cost is sacrificing one of your own creatures? He said, segueing neatly into the return of Exploit.
Nice one.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm excited to see Exploit back. This was originally in Dragons of Tarkir.
Yeah.
That sounds right.
It was the Silumgar mechanic, the blue-black mechanic. And here it is. I think the only card that's been spoiled with it so far is a blue card.
There's also there's this big beastie. There's a zombie kraken, which is a horrifying prospect called Rot-Tide Gargantua. So I'll read that. We'll talk about the blue in a sec. We'll read this one. 3 black for a 5/4 zombie kraken. So that by itself, that's all it does. But it has Exploit, which reads, when this creature enters the battlefield, you may sacrifice a creature. Now, that can be the creature with Exploit. So generally, a creature with Exploit is going to do something in addition to whatever it might already do when you sack a creature. So you can just sort of use them as weird, expensive sorceries if you really must. In this case, it says when Rot-Tide Gargantua exploits a creature, each opponent sacrifices a creature. So this could just be a 5-mana Fleshbag Marauder.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
you just play it and you sacrifice it and your opponent sacrifices a creature. But if you have something little and weenie stick sitting around, then you play this, you sacrifice your like 1/1 token, and then they have to sacrifice something relevant.
Yeah, I mean, like that's kind of the way that Fleshy Bee operates normally. Yeah, this one's fine. I think I still prefer the one that can hit planeswalkers or discard a card. The one from
Magecrafter? No.
From Guilds of Ravnica.
Yeah,
There's
Guilds.
a wizard that does it. Yeah, they've been experimenting with making Fleshbag Marauder better and better. There's another one where it's like if they can't, they lose life or something. If they can't sacrifice a creature, I'm trying to remember what it was. But I think in one of the last 2 year sets, possibly still in Standard, there was a Fleshbag Marauder variant that had another upside again. So yeah, they've definitely been playing with this space because Fleshbag Marauders, like, it's been pretty fringe, right? Like it's okay in Blood Artist decks and maybe it's okay in zombie decks, but it's one of those effects that's been kind of getting sort of played with a little bit to try to find a sweet spot where maybe it's going to be constructed playable, sort of like Mind Rot's in that same space, where they're tweaking it all the time, trying to push it a little bit to see if they can get it to be more relevant. And yeah, to their credit, like Go Blank has been showing up in some constructed lists. But yeah, this card is terrifying. It's a very scary picture of a zombie kraken, and it's hard for me to find any other takeaways about this. It has exploit.
So the other one, you wanted to talk about Overcharged Amalgam, I imagine?
Yes. This one feels fun. This is a 2/2 blue zombie horror. It's a 3/3 with flash, flying, and exploit. When Overcharged Amalgam exploits a creature, counter target spell, activated ability, or triggered ability. So this feels a lot like Silumgar Sorcerer from Dragons of Tarkir, which was a 1 blue 2/1 human wizard with flash, flying, and exploit, which countered a target spell. So for 1 additional mana, you can also stifle, and you get a much more useful body.
Yeah.
Yeah, this seems like a scary, powerful constructed card.
So like worst case, again, you can just 2 blue to counter anything. Basically, you can just exploit itself if you must, but you probably are going to be able to craft a situation where it's going to be beneficial to sacrifice something else and leave yourself with a 3/3 flyer after having countered something relevant of your opponent.
Yeah, there was like in Ikoria where we had the shark.
Right.
That countered a spell and like did a bunch of stuff, right? And it was like a 5-mana thing and you could see it coming a mile away. But, because you had to get on with your life, you kind of had to play into it sometimes.
Yeah, strong addition to like a blue-white flash kind of team or blue-red flash in the same camp of power level. I would guess as the petty theft, brazen borrower sort of squad, 3 power flyers with bonus abilities.
Mm-hmm.
Exploit also, especially on this card because it's a horror. I guess the other one was pretty horrific too, but this one reminds me more of the Shadows over Innistrad, Eldritch Moon, Emerge cards. Like Exploit being on Innistrad to me feels somewhat familiar, even though this is new. It's sort of like reminds us of Emerge. They're fairly similar abilities, and yeah, I don't know. It's got it obviously like sacrificing things. Gothic horror. It's a good fit.
Agreed. And then there's one more creature with exploit, which is Fell Stinger. It's a zombie scorpion. It has Death Touch. It's 3/2 for 3. When it exploits a creature, target player draws 2 cards and loses 2 life.
Ooh, that's a nice one too.
Yeah, I like that one a lot.
This card, I feel 2 very distinct ways about this card. The art greatly upsets me.
Mm-hmm.
The not like really, but just sort of like, It's something about the double stinger on the horse-sized scorpion is it gives me the giblies. But the actual card, just 3/2 Death Touch for 3 with a relevant subtype. Like it's also a zombie. Like that's pretty dope. And then if you can exploit something for a Sign in Blood, it's like, ooh, yes, please.
Yeah, the fact that it's target player too, like you can use this to kill your opponent if there are 2.
Yeah, you can just play it, sack itself, and dome them.
Yeah, exactly. The flexibility of having a 3/2 Death Touch for 3 or a Sign in Blood, or maybe both if you have another creature to sacrifice. Like, pretty cool card.
Mm-hmm.
Also, I like the idea that just you've got your horse bringing all your bales of hay in, and like it's time to take a break. You're just gonna walk the hay from the cart right there into the barn. For whatever reason, you need to let your horse out to pasture, and you're just going to slowly unload that hay instead of pulling the cart out. And then you come back after bringing the first bale, and it's just like, nope, this is it. I'm done. I'm changing jobs.
Yep.
I'm ruined now. We were barely holding on, and now A draft horse has to be the economic equivalent of a tractor, right?
Yeah. It's got to be one of your most expensive possessions for sure if you're a farmer on Innistrad.
Yeah. Well, guess we're losing the farm, Martha.
Yep. I'm done with this. We're going to become zombies.
Another returning mechanic is Daybound and Nightbound. There are werewolves. There were vampires in Midnight Hunt. There are werewolves here. May as well talk about one. There's a mythic in red, Volatile Arsonist. 3 red for a 4/4 with Menace and Haste, which is already scary. Whenever Volatile Arsonist attacks, it deals 1 damage to each of up to 1 target creature, 1 target player, and or up to 1 target planeswalker. So you get to throw around 1 point of damage to one of each kind of those things if you want. And then on the Nightbound side, it is a 5/5 werewolf with Menace and Haste, and whenever it attacks, it deals 2 damage of up to 1 creature, player, and or planeswalker. So yeah, it's not particularly flashy. It's just that beats.
Yeah, that's going to ruin my day.
Big glory bringer at home vibes.
Yeah. This is going to blow away my Fell Stinger, kill my planeswalker, and then shock me even before it connects. Right? Yeah.
Yeah, no. Nice medium red dragon right there. The way that these Daybound, Nightbound cards work in this set doesn't look to have changed again, so this should be a fairly familiar mechanic to everyone who's just been playing.
These don't seem to have changed.
Yeah, be prepared to have 3 blockers up at all times when you're against red.
Yeah.
Right, yeah. If you would like to learn about a new mechanic, might we interest you in training? This is a new mechanic that's sort of similar to Mentor. The way it works is, whenever this creature attacks with another creature with greater power, put a +1/+1 counter on this creature. So I'm looking at Griff Rider right now. This is 2 and 1 white mana for a 2/1 flying with training. So a flying creature that buddies up with a slightly larger creature when they attack, that might be another flying creature, it might not, and each time the Griff Rider attacks alongside another creature with higher power, it gets a +1/+1 counter. So pretty nice ability, and an interesting sort of counterpart to Mentor.
Yeah, I think it's neat.
Yeah, we've also seen a 1/4 with reach in green called Apprentice Sharpshooter. It's 2 generic and a green for a 1/4 reach training. So pretty easy to activate the training trigger and a big butt. So hopefully you'll survive combat, maybe get to grow that thing into, wing shredder size. And we haven't yet had spoiled any sort of mythics with training there is one. Savior of Ullenbach we also saw. This is 1 white or 1 generic and 2 white, so 3 mana again for a 1/2 with training. And whenever Savior of Ullenbach trains, so that's when you get the +1/+1 counter on it, exile up to 1 other target creature from the battlefield or creature card from a graveyard. That's exciting. And whenever it leaves the battlefield, put the exiled cards onto the battlefield under their owner's control. So pretty powerful ability there. Let's break that down again. When this trains, exile up to 1 other target creature from the battlefield or creature card from a graveyard. So you can either be, maybe getting ready to blink your own things on the field. That's probably the least popular mode, but you could exile your own creatures that you have on the board if you are worried about a wrath, or if you're planning to wrath, or if you just need to have insurance. You can also just get stuff back from your graveyard, so you can exile your own creatures from your graveyard. Or probably the most common sort of board affecting one is exiling their blockers. So similar to how we just had Brutal Cathar in the last set, there's a 3-drop in white that's able to take out and exile, at least temporarily, multiple creatures from the opponent. So yeah, watch out. I'm looking forward to losing to this one in draft real hard.
Yeah. There is one more mechanic that's not sort of like a keyword mechanic, but it is a pervasive theme in the whole set, which makes a lot of sense for a vampire wedding, which is blood. So there's a new token in the same sort of vein as food, treasure, or clues, and it's a blood token. Now, inherently, I think that blood tokens are not as strong as those necessarily. I mean, so the most easy comparison is to a clue. So a clue token, we know this. We have them in standard right now. 2 mana, and I think you have to tap it still, but 2 mana and sacrifice it to draw a card. A blood token is only 1 mana, but it's a rummage. So you sacrifice the blood token, you discard a card, and then you draw a card. So in limited, certainly that's still quite good, because late in the late in the game, you just pitch a land and you draw something hopefully relevant. But the thing is that there's also a lot of synergy for them in the set. So an example we've seen so far is Gluttonous Guest. So it's 2 and a black for a 1/4 vampire. When it enters the battlefield, you create a blood token. And whenever you sacrifice a blood token, you gain 1 life. Or, for example, Anya, Maid of Dishonor. 2 black red for a 4/5 vampire, legendary. Whenever she and or 1 or more other vampires enter the battlefield under your control, create a blood token. This only happens once per turn. And then for 2, sacrifice another creature or blood token. Each opponent loses 2 life and you gain 2 life. And there's other stuff that cares about sort of how many blood tokens you have. So they're not just the thing that exists in and of themselves. If you don't have a lot of synergy with them, that's fine, because you still have sort of like the rummage thing. But there are cards that will care about how many blood tokens you have, that kind of thing. So I think it's good for flavor of the set, but it's also, I just think it's just mechanically neat.
Yeah, it's a fun bit of flexibility.
Mm-hmm.
These tokens that like have this one-shot effect and hang around until you use them, I think, again, it's been a cool part of Design Space we've seen expanding. The zombie with Decayed token last set being kind of like the next evolution after food and clues of just like, okay, it's a creature, but only once. You get, it's an attacking token, attacking for 2 token, which you'll sometimes use for something else, like sacrificing a creature.
Mm-hmm.
Another one of the cool effects we see using a blood token is Voldaren Bloodcaster. This is 1 generic and a black for a 2/1 flying vampire wizard. So pretty nice stats already, 2/1 flyer, and it can block, unlike Vampire Interloper. And I'm happy to play that card whenever. So I'm in already. Whenever Bloodcaster or another non-token creature you control dies, create a blood token. But whenever you create a blood token, if you control 5 or more blood tokens, transform this. And on the backside, we get a 3/3 still with flying called Bloodbat Summoner that says at the beginning of combat on your turn, up to 1 target blood token you control becomes a 2/2 black bat creature with flying and haste in addition to its other types. And I guess, in addition to keeping its rules text, which says you can sacrifice this and discard a card to draw a card. So that's a pretty cool payoff right there.
Yeah.
Slowly turn all of your little rummage artifacts into 2/2 bats.
Yeah.
I will also look forward to losing to this card in draft.
And I think the last mechanic, there's a lot going on in the set, is another returning mechanic, which is Disturb. So Disturb is back, but with a twist. Because, well, we've only seen 2 cards, but I assume that this carries on. I think that in the video that they did actually say that this was the case. But Disturb in this set, the spirits come back as enchantments. So we've got Drogskull Infantry, 1 and a white for a 2/2 Spirit Soldier. That's it. It's a bear, 2/2 for 2, with Disturb for 3 and a white. And it comes back as Drogskull Armaments, which is a creature enchantment, and the enchanted creature gets +2/+2. And then same as before, if it would be put into a graveyard from anywhere, you exile it instead. And then we've also seen Dorothea Vengeful Victim is white-blue for a 4/4 flying spirit. When Dorothea Vengeful Victim attacks or blocks, sacrifice it at the end of combat. So it's a 4/4 flyer for 2, but you only get it once to attack or block with it. But then it disturbs for 1 white-blue into Dorothea's Retribution, which is another creature enchantment, and the enchanted creature has, whenever this creature attacks, create a 4/4 white spirit creature token with flying that's tapped and attacking, sacrifice that token at the end of combat. So it turns the creature into a Geist of St. Draft.
Pretty exciting. Does anyone know, like, lore-wise, is Dorothea, like, the Geist of St. Draft's friend or something? Or, I don't know, yeah.
I don't actually know.
Not a clue.
I think this might be the first time we're seeing Dorothea.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I also wonder, like, thematically or lore-wise here, I'd like to go back and check. I haven't, but, like, are all the creatures in Midnight Hunt, are they all, like, alive on the first side, and then when you disturb, they're spirits? Because these ones are, like, spirits that then, like, you disturb and they're, like, on another plane where it's like they're not even really, they're not moving their own bodies, but they can kind of leave you with a tool. They've, like, left behind a tiny presence of themselves, right?
I think everything in Midnight Hunt was alive first. Let me just look it up, though.
Yeah.
Like, the only one that gave me pause was Dennick, and Dennick was definitely a human first.
Yeah, Dennick is a human on one side and a ghost on the other side.
Yeah, in Midnight Hunt, all the disturb creatures were alive on one side and ghosts on the other.
Neat. So now they're all ghosts, and then it's like just the tiniest piece of them, just the sword to give a creature +2/+2.
Oh, right. I didn't even realize that. Droxel Infantry is a ghost on the... Oh, right. They're both ghosts on the first side. Oh, yeah. All right.
So whoever invented, these zombies have decay because Liliana already used up all the good zombies, and these are the only ones that are left. It's like they're barely even held together. It's like, kudos. Probably I'm thinking it's the same people that came up with okay, now we're gonna slowly phase these people all the way out. They're gonna go from being alive to being dead to being just a piece of a ghost.
Mm-hmm.
Very, very cool storytelling through the cards and through the mechanic.
Cool. Well, already mechanically, this looks like a lot of fun. Are there any other cards that we want to talk about before we start talking about all the different ways they can look? Actually, I got one. I want to talk about Grolnok the Omnivore.
Please.
Big frog.
Everyone loves a big frog. 2 green-blue for a 3/3 legendary creature frog. Whenever a frog you control attacks, mill 3 cards. Whenever a permanent card is put into your graveyard from your library, exile it with a croak counter on it.
Croak counter.
You may play lands and cast spells from among cards you own in exile with croak counters on them. So anything that gets milled off is basically just in your hand, as long as you still control Grolnok the Omnivore.
Well, that's messed up.
Yeah, that seems very cool.
Yeah, some fun Commander games, drawing 5 cards with Tome Scour or whatever.
Yep.
Do you know that, traditionally, a lot of frog creatures in Magic do graveyard stuff?
I would not have anticipated that, but...
Yeah. Didn't know that. Didn't know that frogs were really known for anything. I kind of thought frogs were, friends with clones. I sort of think of frogs first as being, a thing that the Simic Combine kind of does when they're experimenting. It's like, we're gonna make you half frog.
Right. So there's lots of frogs that don't interact with the graveyard as well, but I just pulled up a Scryfall search for creature type frog.
Okay.
And Bloated Toad has cycling. Anarid Bark Ripper, which has been oracled to being a frog, has Threshold. Anarid Scavenger gets you to put stuff from your graveyard onto the bottom of your library every upkeep. Excavating Anarid, which is now formally a frog beast, also has Threshold unless you sacrifice lands. Of course, we know all about the Gitrog monster.
Mm-hmm.
It's just interesting that it's oh, okay. So there's, this has actually been a long time coming that frogs sort of mess with the graveyard a bit. And there's plenty that don't, but I mean, it's interesting that there's enough that do.
Quite. Yeah. Yeah. I did not see this coming, but I'm glad it's here.
Yeah. I appreciate that there's another arm hanging out of this thing's mouth.
Yeah. I just appreciate that Gitrog can finally have a buddy cop movie now.
Yeah.
Yeah, although the fact that Grolnok doesn't have black in their identity means that they don't get to be the commander for things like, Gitrog Monster and Yargle.
Right.
Mm.
Yeah, maybe you could get a Sultai commander and then play them all in the 99. I don't know. It's good to think of them hanging out, even if they're going to be on opposite sides of the board sometimes because of the color identity thing.
Nelson, what's one leaping out to you?
Yeah, I'd like to talk about Demonic Bargain, if that's okay. This is a 2 generic and 1 black mana sorcery. That's 3 mana. For exile the top 13 cards of your library, then search your library for a card. Put that card into your hand, then shuffle. So this is a drawback, obviously, on a Demonic Tutor. It's 1 more mana, so that's not a lot more mana. 1 less than paying the cleave on Dig Up. And exiling the top 13 cards versus losing 3 life, usually exiling the cards is going to be worse. But in Standard, where you can play 4-ofs or maybe Historic or Pioneer, this is a 3 mana tutor where if your combo involves, comfortably playing multiple copies of stuff, you just have a 3 mana tutor to get whichever piece you want. So that's powerful effect stamp I would like to slap on this thing. Don't be surprised if your opponents are demonic bargaining, and then if you don't kill them before they untap again, you won't untap again.
Yeah, it's a gorgeous card, and it reminds me a lot, I forget its name now, but the black tutor where you exile cards from the top of your library until you stop, or you hit a second copy of one of the cards you've exiled.
Tainted Pact?
Tainted Pact, yes, I think. I'm 99% positive it's Tainted Pact, which is just Similar, probably actually quite different in function.
Tainted Pact has this advantage where if you play like a Highlander deck, you can just sort of dig to one specific card.
Yeah, well, I mean, this was the reason why you kind of split your land base, any basics you had, between normal basics and snow covered.
Yeah, exactly. This one doesn't give you that assuredness that like if it's the top 3 cards or whatever that you need, then you can still get it. But yeah, no, I agree. It exiles part of your library and it tutors for a card for you.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure if in Standard there's necessarily going to be a combo deck that everyone has to worry about now that this card's being printed, but possibly. I'm not the best at finding these things out. And also we have another 3-mana tutor in blue right now from Strixhaven that can get an instant or a sorcery, which is again like kind of on the level of very good tutors. I would profess. I would posit that one is a good tutor that probably has already seen some Canadian Highlander play, but I'm not sure if it's in like a good Standard deck. Certainly none that I know of.
You know, you just got to hope, if this is in Standard, you just got to hope that they cast it and then exile all 4 copies of their combo piece.
Right? It's possible. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
At any cost, Graham.
At any cost. Cam, what's been leaping out to you?
I'm really excited about Anya Falkenrath, or her new card, which is
Maid of Dishonor.
Yeah, Maid of Dishonor. Anya is a card we last saw in a commander set that interacted with Madness quite well and led to a really kind of like... Anya Falkenrath was a card I was really excited about, and then the only good deck you can play with her is like Doomsday Pile, which sucks.
Oh,
but
right.
Anya Maid of Dishonor is 2 generic, black, red, for a 4/5 vampire, legendary, clearly. And whenever Anya Maid of Dishonor and or one or more other vampires enters the battlefield under your control, create a blood token. We've spoken about this, and then she has an alternate mode for blood tokens. So 4/5 for 4... wants to be a vampire commander, looks cool. I want to hang out with Anya just in general. Although I'm not really sure she has the organizational capacity that you really need for your Maid of Honor. Right? Like the Maid of Honor needs to be somebody who just like, you know, is able to like get the DJ on track, make sure the catering's done, make sure all the suit rentals have been taken care of properly. Like they need somebody with all their ducks in a row. And Anya, who enjoys torturing people to death, she's going to get sidetracked, I feel. But, you know, I mean, this is a vampire wedding, so what do I know?
Maybe the Maid of Dishonor just needs to show up and kind of break stuff, and there's another Maid of Honor who handles all that other stuff you mentioned.
Yeah. Like, who's in charge of admin?
Certainly, like, both Christian Angel and Yang Jae Choi on the 2 versions of this card I've seen, just killing it with the look of distaste on Audrey's face, right? Like, I just love how much she's like, when is this over? Are we done here yet? Like, can I go now, Mom? You know, I'm so done.
Similarly, we should talk about Soren.
Please.
Oh, yeah. He's hot now.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I mean, he's been hot before.
Hotter than usual.
He's definitely turned it up. Yeah.
But specifically so there's several different art treatments here, but I guess the default art treatment, Soren the Mirthless, right? He's the Mirthless, and he's just got like a goblet of, I guess, blood. I was going to say wine, but I guess it's blood, and he's just like leaning against a door frame, clearly not excited to be at this wedding.
Yeah, like, so I guess I'm not inheriting anything. I guess I'm out of the will, huh?
Yeah, well, I'm curious. I don't remember who. I think I was talking to Paul about this. I don't know how it works on Innistrad. If Soren Markov is Edgar Markov's son, or
son, I think
is
so, yeah.
Edgar just his sire, just the one who turned him, or is he just a vampire that's part of family Markov, and like, are he and Edgar even related? This information probably exists somewhere on the internet, and I've never bothered to look it up. I guess I'll do that right now, live on the podcast.
Awesome.
I just really like the regular set Soren the Mirthless. The art really feels like someone had 400 reference photos in a folder somewhere, just ready to go for this one. Right. Martina Fashkova, like, I feel that her reference folder for this piece of artwork was just something that was years in development.
Yeah.
Yeah. Fantastically hot picture. Why don't we tell you a little bit about the card in case you're just listening and haven't seen it yet?
Oh, here we go. Sorry. Real quick.
But first.
Soren is Edgar's grandson.
Okay. Does that mean that like biologically, like while Edgar was a human still, and then Soren was born, or does it mean like
Biologically,
okay, cool, all right.
Edgar Markov was an alchemist, and then he made a deal with a demon for the secrets of sangromancy and created a blood ritual that granted agelessness and the ability to subsist on blood. So Edgar Markov
Oh,
basically made vampires happen on Innistrad, and then granted that agelessness to Soren. Like Soren wasn't turned in the traditional like teethy way. He was granted a vampiric state by Edgar's sangromancy alchemy malarkey. And there we go. The trauma of this transformation sparked his spark. That's why Soren's a planeswalker, because it probably hurt.
I can imagine.
yeah, I mean, it probably hurt like dying.
Yeah. Anyway, what's the card do?
Right, so Soren the Mirthless, 2 generic and 2 black for a 4 mana, 4 loyalty starting planeswalker. +1, look at the top card of your library. You may reveal that card and put it into your hand. If you do, you lose life equal to its mana value. Ooh, nice tweak on how the sort of Dark Confidant draw card ability tends to work. You can choose not to if it's going to kill you. -2, create a 2/3 black vampire creature token with flying and lifelink. Oh my gosh, this is like what other Sorens did, but better, and you don't even have to pay white mana. For -7, Soren the Mirthless deals 13 damage to any target. You gain 13 life. 13 life. Sign me up. I am excited to play with this card. It seems quite good in my estimation. Yeah.
Well, you've got many options as well, and I want to talk about all of them in terms of playing this Soren. So there's the Soren, the very attractive looking, hiding in the corner, not happy to be here Soren. As in most recent sets, there are also borderless planeswalkers. So there's another different one. This one looks like he's outside on a balcony. Similarly, just like doesn't really want to be at this party. But there's, in the same way that there was the Harvest Tide card frame in Midnight Hunt with the leaves and everything. There's, I don't know what they call it. It's like a fang something. It's a vampire kind of card frame in this set that appears on a bunch of cards, including many cards that we've already talked about. And it's just it's a cool, pointy, filigreed, fancy looking vampire frame. And so Soren is also available in that frame. And the alternate art, because they also have alternate art if they're in that frame, for Soren, I saw it and I was immediately like, dang, that looks like he just walked out of Castlevania. Like, he looks like the art of like Alucard from the cover of Symphony of the Night. The artist is Ayami Kojima, who does the key art for Castlevania games.
Oh, wow.
So they literally just hired the artist who's been working on Castlevania games since Symphony of the Night, which is why it looks like Castlevania. Also, it's great. It's really good.
So many ruffles and just fantastic art.
Yeah. Like the main set, Soren feels like he's at the door to the party, just being like, "Hey, what's up?" These other two feel like he has left the party, which is a mode that I relate to.
Mm-hmm. I'm gonna go outside for a bit. Yeah,
I'm gonna go stand outside for a little bit because it's very noisy in there and nobody's saying anything interesting. So I'm just gonna go hang out on the balcony and drink my glass of blood. And y'all can get me if something interesting happens.
And there is a yet further variant of Soren the Mirthless.
Ain't no alt printing like the 4th alt printing.
Yeah, because in the same way that the Ikoria set had Godzilla cards that was like Godzilla, King of the Monsters, but actually it's mechanically this card right underneath. This set has characters and places and other things, they said, from the Dracula mythos. From, like Bram Stoker's Dracula. And so Soren the Mirthless is Count Dracula. And in the same way that there was many variants of Godzilla, it seems like there are variants of Dracula as well. Because, Nelson, you were talking about Voldaren Bloodcaster that transforms into Bloodbat Summoner. And that is also available as Dracula, Lord of Blood, and Dracula, Lord of Bats. So there's at least 2 Draculas. Voldaren Estate, which we mentioned at the top of the show, is also Castle Dracula. Didn't actually talk about what that card does, by the way. It's a land. It taps for colorless. You can tap it and pay a life to add 1 mana of any color, but you can only spend that to cast vampire spells. And then for 5 and tap, you make a blood token. And this ability costs 1 less for each vampire you control. So I guess at some point you can just start spitting out blood. That sounded wrong.
I already do. I don't need your permission.
So yeah, I think that the Dracula like it's cool. It's neat, like they got Mina Harker. Mina Harker looks amazing.
Right, we haven't mentioned this, but
Yeah.
Thalia's still around, still kicking on Innistrad, and this time, in a standard legal set, we're getting a reprint of the original Dark Ascension Thalia. 1 generic and 1 white for a 2/1 first strike legendary creature that just says non-creature spells cost 1 more to cast. And my favorite meme I've seen on Twitter so far is someone posting, WotC, please ban all Rand's Epiphany from standard, because it's been fairly powerful. A lot of decks are playing it. And then previews Thalia. It's like, don't worry, we don't have to. This is an extremely powerful, like sort of one of the most crucial hate bears, like one of the iconic hate bears from the legacy deck that bears the same name. She's seen lots play in modern, and I'm sure she's going to make an impact on the standard format with the flashback spells running around from the previous set and the Strixhaven decks that are focused on instants and sorceries. So Thalia, long time fan I am of Thalia, so happy to see her back.
And Thalia only looks 3 different ways, because there's the regular printing of Thalia. There's, as I mentioned, the Dracula series Mina Harker variant of Thalia. And then because Thalia isn't a vampire, because only the vampires get the fancy filigree frame with alternate art in the same way that only the werewolves got the Harvesttide frame, Thalia also has a variant with the high contrast black and white art, which we've also seen on a new cycle of basic lands and cards like Dorothea and Grolnok.
Yeah, this black and white Thalia looks fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
Agreed.
They also, speaking of that, they also showed off during that event, they showed off a little bit of Innistrad double feature, which I'm very excited about. I'm
looking forward to that stream.
Yeah, I was going to say, because that comes out in January. So, all going well, we should be able to bring you an in-person draft of that.
Whew.
But it's designed as a draft set. It's not just like older Magic where it was you draft the 2 sets side by side, one pack after another. It's much more like a remastered set where it's cards from Innistrad Midnight Hunt and cards from Innistrad Crimson Vow. Not necessarily every card, but mixed together in the same boosters for a new draft environment. And apparently every card in double feature, even if it has the same art from its original printing, the art they've done a treatment to the art for every single one of them is in high contrast black and white.
Whoa.
Ooh. So it will look like an old monster movie, which
looking forward to that.
I think that's kind of sweet.
Yeah, no,
I'm excited
agreed
to play that for a bunch of different reasons.
I'd like to talk about just a couple more cool cards that we've seen spoiled.
They're
not part of any cycles or anything, or lead into any particular things happening, any events, but by invitation only is a new sort of Wrath variant. This is 3 generic white for a sorcery, so 5 mana, and it says choose a number between 0 and 13. Each player sacrifices that many creatures. So really interesting Wrath that kind of revolves around tokens or go wide strategies, right? If you're the go wide player, you can include this, and as long as you have more creatures than your opponent, you can have one stick around or more than one stick around, with the drawback that if your opponent is going wider than you, or if your opponent has gone wider than 13 creatures on the board, it doesn't maybe do the whole job, and you're kind of left possibly with too many creatures on the opposing side even after you cast your sweeper. But really cool card, and I think that's the 3rd card they spoiled from that stream that has a number 13 on it that we've talked about.
Mm-hmm. But yeah.
And the last one I really need to give a shout out to is Massive Might. This is 1 green mana instant for target creature gets +2/+2 and trample until end of turn. So while this doesn't pack the punch of like a Groundswell or Might of Old Kroza, because it includes the trample still on the 1 mana trick and only shaving off 1 point of power and toughness pump from a typical giant growth, I think this is going to be something that Infect players might consider, and certainly any deck that's being aggressive. This is like a great 1 mana trick.
Agreed.
Trample, probably the next best thing you can give after Hexproof. So I don't like it quite as much as that Kaladesh one that was the same with +2/+2 and Hexproof, but it's still very, very good. And the art is of a big snail that's taking over a whole town. So that's great too.
Yeah.
Watch out for giant sludge.
It's so big.
You know what else is really big?
Oh yeah, you know what else is really big? Graham?
No, go for it.
Cameron? Yeah.
No, that was all I had, actually. I had the segue, and then it led right to a cliff.
Okay, we're gonna get a clean take, right, Jordan? We're gonna edit all that out.
Okay, thanks, Jordan.
Yeah, thanks, Jordan. You know what else is really big? making a big order from cardkingdom.com/LRR. Maybe you could get some of your favorite new cards from the old Crimson Vow set there. If you're in the United States, you can get anything they offer, and if you're in the rest of the world, you can get everything they offer except for the newest sealed product. You can still get new singles shipped to you outside of the United States from Card Kingdom. Let them know that we sent you and ask for a button when you're making your order, and you'll get a cool little 1-inch button that says, and I'd also like to thank our Patreons at patreon.com/LRR. Oh, wait, whoops, I meant to do the button. It's draw, untap, oops, upkeep, I think. There we go. I couldn't quite get as meta as Graham did last week, but I do want to thank our Patreons at patreon.com/LoadingReadyRun for continuing to support us, to make terrible segues and even worse jokes. And we'll keep doing it as long as you keep helping us to get it done. So thank you for that.
Delightful. All right, that is going to do it for this episode of Tap Tap Concede. Reminder, please tune in to the pre-release this coming Friday on twitch.tv/loadingreadyrun, or just kick around this YouTube channel because the VOD will be up here eventually. Thanks everybody for watching or listening or however you interact with this. We appreciate it. I've been Graham, joined by Cameron and Nelson.
I was also here.
Jordan edits these, James was running the card reader, Heather gets them online, and you've all been listening, so everyone's helped. Okay, bye.
Bye.